What's up, Sean?
Hey, can you hear me?
Yep.
Hey, Sean.
How you guys? How you doing, Mike?
Doing well. Good to hear from you.
All right, so I always got a question prepared just in case we have gun shy people that don't want to talk.
Well, and hopefully we don't have some shy people today, but it's always nice to kick it off with you, Sean, because you're a longtime listener,
Yeah, not first-time caller.
Not first-time caller.
Just like the love line.
Yeah,
So
like the love line.
pretty much. Yeah, we can solve those problems too.
all right, so we got a call for service. It's a third party claiming that the neighbor in the apartment building is having a domestic fight. Can tell that it's a man and a woman. The deputy gets on scene, sees a guy coming down the stairs before he gets to the appropriate apartment number, and asks them, "Hey, do you live in apartment number 7?"
Yep.
And he says yes. So the deputy says, "Hang on a minute, we've got a report that there's a call for service here and there's a problem. I need you to stay right here." And the guy says, "No, I'm leaving." And so the deputy says, "No, now you are legally being detained for my investigation."
Mm-hmm.
And so now the deputy's question to me was, at what point can I ID this person?
Mm-hmm.
And I gave him the answer, but I wanted to hear what you guys had to say.
Well, let me ask you this, though. Because you're in Iowa, what does Iowa's stop and identify statute say?
So if you remember the text I sent you, it is very vague.
Remind me.
So it talks about if we are lawfully present or in a lawful investigation, then you have to ID.
Okay. So it's standard stop and identify is fair. Okay.
Yeah.
It's vague, but a lot of them are vague.
Yeah.
Okay, so I actually, do you have what do you think on this?
Well, yeah. I mean, it's even with your vagueness there, Sean, like you're saying, it sounds, the first question is going to be, is there justification to stop this guy, to come into contact with him? And based on what we've got, the domestic violence situation happening, he's coming from the apartment that it's believed to be taking place. You've got, reasonable suspicion to believe that he's involved in that crime.
Yeah. So let's go through it, right? So reasonable suspicion is obviously based on Terry versus Ohio. It requires a moderate chance of criminal activity, right? It has to be particularized, but it's not a high level of proof. It's certainly, lower than probable cause and much lower than certainty that the person has committed a crime. So let me ask you this first, Sean. Based on the facts that the officer knows at the time, is there a moderate chance that this particular person is engaged in criminal activity? Yes or no?
Absolutely.
So I agree. So the next thing is, let's talk about stop and identify. So not every state has a stop and identify statute. I want to say about half do and half don't. Okay.
That many, half of.
Yeah, it's
Wow.
not actually, you would think that more would have it, but a big one that doesn't have it is California.
Wow.
California does not have a stop and identify. So if you get detained in California, and you're in the cops like, what's your name and identification? They don't have to answer. Now they cannot lie.
Correct.
That's impeding an investigation, but they don't have to say anything. So when it comes to stop and identify states, which Iowa, Nevada, and several others are, then we are going to look at a case called Hiibel. Hiibel is Hiibel. And actually it's a case that comes out of Mike's backyard here in Nevada.
Up north a little bit.
It's up. They call it it's Winnemucca. Okay. The case occurred in Winnemucca, or they call it the Muck. Did you know that?
I hadn't heard that before.
Yeah, they call it the Muck. So Winnemucca is a small rural place. It's actually a pretty place. But the point is that Hiibel was suspected of domestic violence. Seems kind of appropriate.
Right.
And
Yeah.
The deputy said, "Hey, I need to identify you per Nevada's statute for stop and identify." And Hiibel was a cowboy, maybe a rancher. And he was like, I'm not, he's kind of like obstinate. I'm not going to identify myself. I didn't do anything wrong type of thing.
Because he found him near his truck, and like abrupt stop, and it was still some suspicious stuff going on when he came into contact with him.
That's right.
Yeah.
And the officer had the reasonable suspicion. And basically the officer's like, you need to identify yourself. I need to know who you are. And Hiibel basically was very, again, obstinate. And he was like, I'm not going to identify myself. And ultimately, Hiibel was arrested under the NRS for stop and identify in Nevada. And this goes all the way up to the U.S. Supreme Court. And what is Hiibel's argument? That this is a couple things. Number one is that this is, it violates my Fifth Amendment.
Mm.
Asking me to tell you my name is a Fifth Amendment privilege to be silent.
Mhm.
And number two, it's an unlawful seizure because you can't just hold me up and arrest me for not identifying myself under this statute. And the U.S. Supreme Court says we're good to go.
Mhm.
First of all, giving your name is usually, there's always exceptions, is usually not incrimination.
Mhm.
Your name is not the evidence of the crime.
Correct.
The fact that your name is Mike Boone does not mean you are more likely to commit auto thefts, right?
Most
Well,
likely.
I
Most likely, yeah.
And so anyway, so the point is that's how they handle the Fifth Amendment issue. The second thing is, this is important. Okay, you ready for this, Sean?
Yep.
The important piece that Hiibel, but also cases after Hiibel kind of talked about is like the name that running that person has to be related to the criminal activity. In other words, what I teach is if you have a stop and identify statute, whether it's Iowa, Nevada, etc., and that name does nothing for you, it does not forward that investigation by one iota, leave it alone. Let me give you an example. So, let's say you stop me for shoplifting, and Walmart I'm not Walmart, fuck Walmart. Am I Walmart material here? Target calls you and says that Anthony was shoplifting, and I'm sorry, Anthony, this guy was shoplifting. Gives you a general description, not great description. A lot of people around. It's a busy place, but you kind of see me and you're like, I think that this guy is my shoplifter. You stop me. You say, what is your name? Identify yourself under the statute. I say, go pound sand. And I'm not doing it. And I did not shoplift. And you're like, okay, you want to play that game? And so about a minute into it, Target calls you and roundabout through dispatch, says, hey, actually, we got the guy. He's on premises. The guy you're stopped out there at the end of the parking lot, that's not him. But yet I didn't identify. What should you do with me?
Let you go.
Correct. And that's the point. But Sean, because you are a current law enforcement executive, because you're a command level, that there are cops out there that are going to take offense to this.
Yeah, I've got you on the line.
I got you on the line.
I can roll with this.
That's right. You still did not comply with the statute. I told you to identify yourself, even though right now it's not worth anything. I still want your name.
Yeah.
What I would tell that cop is let it go. Have a reason to identify, and most of the time you will.
Amanda, that's going to be an unjustified use of force, is kicking you down the road. Amanda says, kick you down the road. I think that's an unlawful use.
I don't know why she's so violent. These Kansas people, they just want to just kick people. You know what I mean? If I lived in Kansas, I probably want to kick people too.
But what's sad is that when you look at some of the YouTube videos that are opposite of what you guys are teaching, those I'm not going to.
How dare you?
The First Amendment auditor type things, and you're seeing cops still doing the same thing with the ID thing. And
that's exactly what these First Amendment auditors want. They want to know that these cops are going to get irritated by that and keep pushing, and they're just racking up the zeros.
I'll tell you what my deputy did. My deputy said, "Okay, hang on a minute, because they get a lot of training on this Fourth Amendment." He was able to knock on the door while the guy stood right there and didn't leave. And come to find out, it was just a simple argument in an apartment, which there was no domestic occurred. And
right.
Said, hey, is this your boyfriend? Yeah, that's my boyfriend. And he just turned around to the guy and said, you can go.
Yep, exactly.
And because one, there isn't a crime, so he doesn't have to ID him, but two, she's going to ID him anyways.
Yeah, exactly. And the thing is, like, and there, look, I'm going to tell you, Sean, that there are some judges out there that are going to disagree with me. They're going to say, you know what, Anthony, if an officer comes to me and this is the facts and he does not identify himself, even though we kind of learn later that it's not really helpful anymore because we dispelled the cops' suspicions. But the law says what it says, Anthony. This is good old Iowa. We don't play that game. You want to play that game, go to Cook County. The thing is, though, what we teach, was that a good impression, by the way? Not really.
It's a little bit your Texas guy.
It's too much Texas.
So, yeah,
Iowa,
you gotta push north just a little bit more.
Yeah, it's probably some bigger words.
A little more.
Yeah, I need to be more simple for the Iowans.
For the Midwest.
So, and say the word pop, by the way. They love the word pop.
Oh, yeah, and bless your heart.
Oh, well, bless your heart's a very Southern thing. And when they say bless your heart, they're insulting you.
Oh, yes.
Oh, you're such a nice,
bless your little heart.
Bless your little heart. Well, you meant well, bless your heart.
Yeah.
It means you're an idiot. So, the thing is, like Sean, is like I always want to win at the Supreme Court. And I can't tell an officer that, if they were testifying to the Supreme Court, which you never, would directly, but you're gonna go to the Supreme Court and say, you know what, Your Honor, I had originally a reason to identify them, shoplifter, maybe they have a history of theft. They're not the person anymore, but I'm still gonna identify them because I want it. Why? The Supreme Court's gonna say, what government interest is there at this point? It's dissipated.
In a person that wasn't doing anything wrong.
That's right. In Hiibel, it makes sense to identify him because if he has a history of violence, if there's a protective order against him, against this victim, it all makes sense. But now, if it's dissipated, so I want to tell you one more little pro tip, Sean.
Okay.
The other pro tip is that I do teach cops that try to identify them in the least intrusive means possible. And here's what I mean by this: when you look at Hiibel, it says that we may demand their name. It does not say anything about demanding their date of birth, and other information, right? I mean, social security number would be extreme,
Or
but
driver's license.
that's right. Now, I got to tell you though, I believe that the Supreme Court meant identity, not name. And the reason why I believe that is because ultimately they upheld Nevada statute as written. They did not make any alterations. They said this is a good law, right? And Nevada's ID statute, or stop and identify, says the word identify. It does not say the word name. But the Supreme Court, I believe, in an example of sloppy language, just said that people may be forced to give their name. And the reason I bring that up, Sean, is that there's an agency in Nevada that is being sued right now because a cop did not just accept a name. The officer also ordered that the person give a date of birth. And the reason why is because the officer ran the name only, and the name was very generic. And 19 people came back, including at least one with a warrant. And she's like, look, I don't want to just take this guy for, I don't know who this is, really this name, right? I can't say the name, but it's let's just say like a Johnson, okay? And then the officer says, give me your date of birth. I'm ordering you to. He gives, the suspect gives the date of birth. It's not the wanted suspect. And ultimately, the person was kicked loose. He then grabbed an attorney and said, you violated Hiibel. Hiibel says name only. You demanded my date of birth. Is that the right answer? No.
Identify. They have to satisfactorily
Yes.
identify them.
Otherwise, it's useless. You got a guy that their parents have a cruel joke and they name their kid John Doe. And you can never identify that guy. So I think the way I teach it, Sean, is look, my name is very unique. Anthony Bandiero. Do you know what actually Bandiero is Italian? Now, do you know that it's actually, it's Italian for pendejo?
Oh.
Like fucking Mike over here, believe me. He's like, that's how, he's from the Midwest. That's the gullible. He's like, he's from Missouri. He's like, oh, that's.
Yo hablo un poquito de español también.
So anyways, the point is like, what I teach is, look, if they give you a unique name, like Anthony Bandiero, you're going to probably be able to find me. But if they give you a Mike Boone, a little tougher. So maybe you need to go to the next level. Now, if I'm driving my car, let's say my name is, Anthony Johnson. I'm driving my car and you can run my tag and it's me. Let it go. That's, you identify me. Does that make sense, Sean?
Absolutely.